month, do an open service in the street. So you can see they've set it up pretty cool. They've got these lights just hanging from, they're almost like Christmas light wires, but they've just got regular light bulbs on. They just hang them up in the street, bring out a bunch of chairs, bring out a guitar and some amplifiers, and they just start preaching. And they do it in a different neighborhood each time. So this is their first time out here, and I'm excited. I don't know how that they're going to do it. I don't know what the plan is. If there is a plan, no idea. But I'm pretty excited to see how it goes. This is a pretty cool neighborhood to be in, so I'm excited to see what happens here.
Sí, señor, gracias.
So when the Salvation Army first started, they were really famous for these kinds of meetings where they would go out onto the streets and they would preach the gospel in places that no one else wanted to go. And there are all these stories about the great miracles that God would do during these incredible evangelistic campaigns that they had. One story in particular talks about how there was a service going on and all of these unbelievers came into the meeting. And as they were in the meeting, William Booth, who is the founder of the Salvation Army, he made a call for people to come up forward to receive the Lord. And nobody came up front. They said that there were all of these unbelievers in the back, but the presence of God was so powerful they were all too scared to actually come up front and receive the Lord. So in the story goes that William Booth, he told the leaders who back then they would sit up front, and he called out to them and said, pray for them to come to the Lord. And as he was saying that, the elders would pray, and they would get on their knees and pray, and they were covered in sweat and all this stuff. And the presence of God was so powerful that they said that the Spirit of God or angels or whatever it was actually picked up the unbelievers in the back, carried them over the whole church and dropped them down in front of the pulpit. And of course they ended up getting so freaked out by the whole thing they got saved. So these kinds of meetings, they bring those kinds of stories. They bring out that potential for God to move in untouched, dark places. You know, they aren't the prettiest places, they aren't the easiest places, they're definitely not the easiest place to make these videos because, as you can see, it is dark everywhere. But when we come out into these kinds of places and we become a light in all this darkness around us, it gives us the opportunity for the Holy Spirit to move in power. So I got to get to the service. Talk to you guys later.
Familia muy especial para cada uno de nosotros. Es una bendición.
Look at this, guys. This is a procession for the Virgin Mary here in Guatemala. I'm trying to get closer without making people mad. Doing fireworks to celebrate her for 4 days. We've been doing fireworks constantly. We thought that there was going to be a procession, but we didn't know what it was going to be. So you guys see that procession back there. You know, that is actually how Timothy died, if you didn't know that. The disciple of Paul, he actually, when he was an older man, after Paul had been killed by Nero, Timothy was actually sitting on the side of the road, and a group of pagan priests were walking down the street, were carrying a statue just like that, but of the goddess Diana, the Greek goddess. And Timothy actually got up, stood in the middle of the road, preached against them and rebuked the priests for what they were doing, and the people got so riled up that they actually stoned him to death. And so Timothy died a martyr for preaching against the goddess Diana. But as you can still see from this kind of stuff is happening all the time. We've seen this all over Guatemala. We see it, and I mean, there's many countries that do this. I mean, most parts of the world have something like this. They'll just do different versions of it. I mean, here they're worshiping, you know, La Virgin de Guadalupe, the Mary, which, you know, Hinduism, you know, all kinds of other religions, they do the exact same thing. So it's all paganism. It's all just the same thing I talked about when I was in Thailand, about how they're just sitting there worshiping these blocks of wood and these statues and bronze statues that they paint and that they make themselves, and all of a sudden this thing is God. That's why we worship the living God. We don't worship some block of wood. So it's been a crazy day. We just had that church service that you saw, and right now, of course, they immediately stopped as soon as I started filming, but oh, there they go again. There have been about 10 minutes of just constant fireworks worshiping that statue. And so last night we slept barely anything because there was just, I mean, tons of fireworks, because like I said, it's a 4-day thing and they're continuing right now. I'm expecting it to go on all night long. I'm just gonna put in some headphones to try and go to sleep. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please like, please subscribe, leave any comments that you can, that you would like to leave below. And we have a lot more adventures to come. We will talk to you soon, and I hope we all have a good night. Oh, and by the way, for anyone wondering, the reason we were there where the procession was with the Virgin Mary is because it was literally right in front of our door when we pulled up from the church service. And the main staging area for this whole festival is just around the corner from us, like maybe 100 yards, if that, from us. So it's been all around us since we got here yesterday.